Hey, what's up everyone? This is Daniel again. Today I'm going to be showing you how to replace the starter on your Mitsubishi Eclipse. This is the GT Spider with a 3.0 liter engine. So let's go over some tools that will be useful in completing this job. A headlamp, a 3/4 inch deep socket, a 14mm deep socket, a 14mm open-ended wrench, a 13mm open-ended wrench, some liquid wrench for your exhaust bolts, and then some brake cleaner and rags. And you'll also want some gloves and an oil catch pan. Some additional tools that will be helpful is an oil filter wrench and a 10mm socket. So once you have your part, let's go ahead and raise up the vehicle, and we will be sure to support the vehicle on 2 jack stands, one on either side. And here is where I chose to support the vehicle on this car. So on this particular vehicle, here is an example of the starter failing. It is just causing smoke and it does not turn over whatsoever. So if you're stranded and need a really quick fix, I would say at least 50% of the time you could take a hard object such as the wooden end of a hammer and you could hit it against the starter down here to loosen whatever up. In our case, the starter is completely seized, so that will no longer work for us, but it did work several times up until this point. So before starting your work, let's go ahead and use our 13mm wrench to remove the negative battery terminal. Now that you've made your way under the vehicle, let's go ahead and get some liquid wrench sprayed on those exhaust bolts. Typically before starting this, you'll want to remove a heat shield, which was not on this vehicle. It has 2 10mm bolts and 1 10mm nut. Now using our catch pan, we're going to go ahead and remove the oil filter, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So if you're using a high quality penetrating lubricant, as I did here, we can now break loose our 3/4 inch bolts that are holding the exhaust in place, and then I use my drill to remove them the rest of the way quickly. When removing this, be careful not to damage this gasket here, because if you don't damage it, then you can reuse it. There are 2 electrical connections that now need to be removed. The first one will pull straight off. The second one, you'll need your 13mm wrench to remove the nut holding the power lead to the starter. Now using our 14mm wrench, we can remove the first of the 2 bolts that are holding the starter into place. Now we can remove the second 14mm bolt located on the back side of the starter. And you're going to want to remove this bolt using a 14mm deep socket. So at this point, if you have followed the video, you should now be able to just pull the starter directly out with the exhaust pulled down out of your way. Before attempting to reinstall my new starter, I like to compare my new starter to my old starter, and then I also like to remove the nut and the washer on the starter to make it a little bit easier when trying to put them back on when we reconnect the wires. Now we will reinsert the starter in the same manner that we removed it, and after doing so, we will install our 2 14mm bolts. The shorter of the 2 bolts goes on the side we are currently on, and the longer bolt is installed from the back side of the starter. With those 2 bolts started, we can now reconnect our electrical connections. Both of the 14mm starter bolts can now be torqued down to 22 foot-pounds or 31 Newton-meters. Now you will want to install your heat shield. Be sure not to over-tighten the fasteners. So now we're ready to push the exhaust back into place. A lot of times I like to add anti-seize onto my bolts. We'll go ahead and tighten those up. And these are going to be torqued down to 36 foot-pounds or 50 Newton-meters. When reinstalling your oil filter, I like to make sure both surfaces are really clean. And I also like to add a little bit of oil to the rubber gasket on the oil filter. This helps to prevent the oil filter from sticking or being hard to get off in the future. I'm now ready to reconnect the negative battery cable, and we are going to go ahead and start this vehicle while it is up in the air, just so we can re-inspect everything afterward. Thank you everyone for watching. Please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for future videos. If you are looking for a well-rounded toolkit, this kit was $99 through Costco Warehouse. I will also share a link through Amazon down below. I've owned it for about 7 years and it has been amazing.